Welcome to Classic Take, Season 3, Episode 9. The topic we will discuss today is, will Moshiach use AI to make decisions? Today, we have different tools that we can use to process data, to organize information, to figure out what is the best choice to take, what is the best option to use. Will Moshiach use any of these tools to help him further his goals, to reach his goals, to make informed decisions about how to relate to people, to events, and so on and so forth? So let us discuss what our prophets, our sages teach us regarding the decision-making process of Moshiach. The Pasuk says, Pasuk in Yeshayahu Yud Aleph, which speaks about the qualities of Moshiach. It says, V'nochal lav ruach Hashem, the spirit of Hashem will rest upon him, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, a spirit of counsel and strength, ruach das v'iras Hashem, a spirit of knowledge and fear of Hashem. The verse continues, V'harichoi biras Hashem, he will, V'harichoi, the word V'harichoi we will soon see has various different interpretations. One interpretation is he will smell, it comes from the word reach, smell, he will smell with the fear of Hashem. And the verse continues to say that he will not judge based on what he sees with his eyes, and he will not rebuke based on what he hears with his ears, but rather, V'harichoi biras Hashem, he will sense with the fear of Hashem that is in him. Now, the word V'harichoi, as I mentioned before, has various interpretations. On a very simplistic level, the word V'harichoi comes from the word ruach, which means spirit, which means that the verse is trying to tell us that Mashiach will be filled with the spirit of fear of Hashem, and he will be so, in other words, even though the verse already mentioned before, amongst the different qualities of Mashiach that will have ruach das, viras Hashem, knowledge and fear of Hashem, the Pasuk is here highlighting even more the level of Mashiach's fear of Hashem, that will permeate him. He will be filled with the fear of Hashem. There's another interpretation, which is not a contradiction to the previous interpretation, which is that the word V'harichoi comes from the word reach, which is smell, which might be related to the word ruach, which is spirit, but it's a different emphasis, which means that Mashiach will judge by a sense of smell. And in this vein, the Gemara, the Talmud teaches us in Tractate Sanhedrin, Afsad the Gimel Amud Beis 93b, that the words V'harichoi are interpreted by Rava to mean the moirach v'doin. Mashiach will smell and be able to give judgment based on smell. There's actually in the Yad Rama, one of the commentaries in that passage of the Talmud brings two ways of reading the words. The moirach vadoin, which the word vadoin comes from the word vada, certainty, assurance, that Mashiach will give a clear, sure, 100% correct verdict based on the smell, or that vadoin comes from the word that he will din, he will process judgment, he will give a verdict of judgment. And the Talmud goes on to say that Bar Kochva, the famous Bar Kochva, who had led a revolt against the Romans, he claimed to the sages that he was Moshiach. And the sages said, okay, if you're Moshiach, let us check if you have this quality of sensing with the Moirach V'doim, being able to judge by your sense of smell. And when the sages realized that he did not have that quality, they killed him. And there's a whole discussion in the commentaries of the Rambam in Hilchos Melachim, chapter 11, regarding what this means and so on and so forth, which we will leave for another occasion. It's not the purpose of the current episode. But we see over here the centrality of the quality of Mashiach, that he will judge with a sense of smell. Now, simply, if you want to take the whole verse into context, what the verse is trying to say is that Mashiach will have such a level of fear of Hashem that he will be imbued with a certain, what people might call a sixth sense, he will have a certain prophetic intuition that he'll be able to immediately sense whether when two people are standing in front of him, he'll be able, as we say in common English, to smell through the person, right? There's collecting data by means of, videos to surveillance cameras or, psychoanalysis, whatever it is processing data, and then they're smelling through something. Sometimes there's certain things you can't really see or observe through the eyes, through the ears. It's rather a certain sense we're able to pick up what's really going on. Mashiach, due to the fear of Hashem that he will have in his heart a godly intuition, a level of prophecy, if you may, a level of nevuah, of prophecy, of divine intuition, through which he will understand what's really going on, when two people are coming in front of him to be judged, or if he's dealing with a person, be able to right away sense what's going on with that person. So that is the meaning of the verse in context. Is the verse is highlighting Moshiach's connection to Hashem. He will have such a fear of Hashem that it will have this ability to sense immediately what's going on with a person. The question is, why do we specifically use the word reach, smell, for this, right? The word, if you want to highlight how Mashiach will be able to have intuition, a certain sixth sense, as people might put it, why do we use the term smell? So one interpretation, which the commentary of Mitzudes brings on the verse, he says that a smell means, it's like the verse is trying to highlight how Mashiach won't need to put too much effort into figuring out something. It's not like I'll have to sit and hear all the testimony and read all the data and then figure out what's going on. He will just sense automatically. It's Bahargosh Akal, just like when you smell something, it's just a sniff. You take a sniff and you know what's going on. Similarly, Mashiach doesn't necessarily mean he'll use his nose, but it means that he'll have that intuition, which is it will be immediate, automatic, easy. He'll just sniff it and he'll see right away what's going on. So that is why we're using the sense of smell to highlight this particular intuition. It's more of intuition, but it's similar in the sense of smell, and the idea that it's easy, it's quick, it's immediate. There's no need for any thought or to listen or to hear and to go through and to see all various arguments or proofs or evidence that are being presented before him. The Malbim, another commentary on the verse, explains a little bit differently. He explains that the word vaharichoi, which comes from the word, which some people interpret it to mean from the word reach, which means smell, he interprets to come from the word ruach, which means spirit. But the way he interprets the verse, not that it doesn't mean that he'll be filled with the spirit of fear of Hashem, but rather the verse is trying to say that because of the fear of Hashem, Mashiach will become spiritual, which means that he will not need to use his physical senses. Not only he will not need to use his physical senses, he will not use his physical senses to judge a case, because physical senses could be misleading. You could have the biggest lawyers and the cross-examination of evidence, but ultimately, it's as everybody knows, nothing is foolproof. There's no guarantee that the bottom line that you're assuming after all the evidence that you see and hear is 100% accurate. You can make mistakes, you could misunderstand what you saw, or what you heard. So Mashiach will become completely spiritual. In other words, he will judge by the means of his soul, by a divine, a spiritual, a soulful intuition of what's going on. He will not rely on collecting evidence on what the ears see, what the ears hear, and what the eyes see. Rather, he will be more of a spiritual or intellectual, a intuitive understanding of what's going on, because Mashiach will reach that state where he will be completely in tune with spirituality, with godliness, with his soul, and he will not use his physical senses at all. Now, the commentaries in the Talmud actually highlight there's a little bit of a debate, and different perspectives regarding the meaning of smell in this regard. And the question really is, if the sense of smell is considered a more spiritual type of a sense than seeing and hearing, or it's considered a more physical, or a lower sense than hearing or seeing. And there's a passage in the Talmud in Brachas Daf Mem Gimel Amud Beis in Tractate Brachas 43b, that the Talmud says over there that we make what's the source? We know that we make a special blessing on smell. We make a bracha by the minei besamim, or there's different particular blessings and different sources of smell that we make a blessing upon. And the Talmud asks, what is the source that we should make a blessing on smell? And we bring a verse, the last verse of the book of Tehillim. It says, Kol haneshama talul ka halaluka, every soul should praise Hashem. And the Talmud says that if we analyze the verse, we see that we're praising Hashem for something which is connected with the soul, not with the body. And that most other blessings that we make a blessing over food, over drink, are things which are associated with the body. But what is the type of benefit, enjoyment that we have that is not so much associated with the body, but more with the soul, we say that is reach, that is smell. Smell is something which more benefits the person's soul. It lifts his spirit. It's not so much a bodily benefit. It's not like a food which satiates the body, which gives nutrition to the body. But rather, smell is something which more satiates the soul. It invigorates the soul. Based on this Talmud, the Maharsha explains that the sense of smell is more of a spiritual sense, and that is why, going back a little bit similar to the commentary of the Malbim that I just mentioned, a similar concept, that is why Moshiach, he explains, will specifically use a sense of smell, because today most people, their smell is just used for physical things, but Moshiach will become so in tune with spirituality, with divinity, with godliness, that is reflected in the fact that he will use a sense of smell. Smell is something which the soul could appreciate. So, smell is something which relates more to the soul than to the body. And Mashiach, which will be very much in tune with his soul, he will not use his ears and his eyes, because those are things that absorb, that analyze physical things. Rather, Mashiach will use his sense of smell to absorb the spiritual, the fragrance, the smell of something, which is, he will have that ability to discern things based on the sense of smell. And he will specifically use the sense of smell, because what you see and what you hear is not always 100% accurate, but what you smell touches the spirituality aspect of something, and it's connected with the soul, and therefore Mashiach will use that more of a spiritual sense of judgment that he will be able to use to be able to detect something that the physical senses of ears, of hearing and seeing might not be able to detect. There's another understanding, which is, it leads to the same conclusion, but it's just a reverse understanding. The Chidor Rabbi Yosef Chaim David Azulai, in his commentary of Pesach Einayim, in that passage of the Talmud, he actually disagrees, and he says that sense of smell, in his understanding, is more physical than hearing and seeing. And he says that the sense of smell, when you hear and you see, you could listen to deep concepts, you could see with your eyes and look at the world and understand, and helps you understand spiritual concepts. The sense of smell that we have today is used just to sniff physical things. It's not. He says that inherently the sense of smell is considered the lower form of spirituality, of connected with the spirit, than seeing and hearing. He says that the point of the passage of the Talmud, that the sense of smell is something connected with the soul and not with the body, is only in contrast to the sense of taste, the idea of food, of ingesting food, tasting food, which is what we usually make our blessings for. So regarding that, smell is considered more spiritual. But smell is not as spiritual as seeing and hearing. And he says that the way he explains the passage of the Talmud is the same idea, but in a little bit of a reverse direction. He says Mashiach will be of course Mashiach will be able to use his eyesight and his ears and his senses of hearing to see what's right and what's wrong. And because Mashiach will be on such a high level, so obviously with his eyes and his ears, he'll be able to see and hear things that most other people will not be able to see and hear. What we're trying to highlight, what's unique about Mashiach, though we say that he'll be able to use a sense of smell, is to say that even the sense of smell, which by most people is more of a physical, more of a material, it's more connected more with material substance of this physical world, by Mashiach, even a sense of smell will be so refined that he will not need to use the power of analysis that comes through his eyesight, through his sense of hearing. He'll be able to analyze information even just by giving a sniff, even with a sense of smell. But not that the sense of smell of Mashiach inherently will be greater than his sense of hearing and seeing. On the contrary, his sense of hearing and seeing will be all the more greater than the sense of hearing and seeing that most human beings have. The point is that even a sense of smell, which to most people is, just you could sniff if the room smells good or bad, there's nothing more you could get out of it. But by Mashiach, will be so in tune with godliness, with spirituality, that even a sense of smell will be able to detect what's going on. And of course, with his eyesight and his ears, he'll be able to detect, that information on a much greater way. So ultimately, everybody agrees that Mashiach will be able to detect, use his sense of smell. The question is just Doesn't mean that he will only use his sense of smell. He will not be able to use is a smell something, is a smell give us a certain clarity, a certain appreciation for events that the eyes and the ears are not able to process, or the sense of smell just means that even the sense of smell, which for most of us is something that is not a tool that we could use to process information, Mashiach will be able to use that tool to process information. And a more Kabbalistic interpretation is to explain that everything in the world, when we look at the world, we see physical matter, but there's also everything in the world has a fragrance. And tzaddikim, people that are more spiritually in tune, are able to smell the fragrance of something. The Zohar discusses a certain Yenuka, a certain child with a high spiritually sensitive soul he told certain sages that he was able to smell in the garments, in the smell of the garments that they were wearing, that they did not fulfill the mitzvah of reciting the Shema on a certain day. They had a valid reason why they didn't, but he was able to perceive that with his smell. So there's a certain fragrance. It says that, for example, when a tzaddik, by a righteous person, there's the fragrance of Gan Eden, of paradise, of the Garden of Eden that envelops him, and somebody that is not on that level, then there's a negative smell that envelops him. Somebody that's the opposite of a righteous person is a negative smell that envelops him. So somebody that is spiritually in tune and a higher spiritual level is able to use, in other words, he's able to pick up the fragrance of something. If somebody's standing in front of him, he's able to sense the smell of this person or this item is giving off. Is it holiness? Is it pure? Is it authentic? Is he saying the truth? Is he not saying the truth? Is he righteous? Is he not righteous? So he's able to pick up something that might not be apparent just by seeing body language or hearing words. He'll be able to pick up something more spiritual, which is able to be picked up primarily through the sense of smell, which is the fragrance that something gives off. So this is more of a mystical, Kabbalistic oriented interpretation of the use of smell in processing information, giving a verdict. So obviously AI, as great as it might be, is good to process data. Obviously it's not foolproof, as we all know, and definitely doesn't provide us with the sense of smell that Mashiach will have. And Chassidus also discusses this at length. Just to discuss this in short, Chassidus explains that the level of smell is connected with the essence of the soul. As we find that, God forbid, when somebody faints, you're not going to give him food to eat. And sometimes you're not going to give him something to drink. Sometimes the only way you're able to revive such a person is by giving him something to smell, by giving him something to sniff. So that means that smell draws forth energy from the essence of the soul, from the essence of the person's vitality, even more than eating and drinking. And similarly, according to Kabbalistic concepts, food is connected with lower levels of the person's soul. It helps, the soul get internalized in the body, but it's connected with lower levels. The level of smell, and the nose in particular, which is associated with the sense of smell, is connected more with the transcendent powers of the soul, the levels of the soul that transcend understanding and intellect, and are more connected with the essential energy, the essential connection that the soul has with Hashem. And by Mashiach, he will be in tune with he will use his smell. Smell reaches the essence of the soul. That's the terminology that the Chassidus gives, particularly regarding Mashiach. It reaches the level of Yechida, the level of the level of the soul, which is connected with the essence of the soul. And Mashiach will be able to sense things by Mashiach. He will reach the level of Yechida, the level of the essential energy of the soul, the essential core of the soul that is connected with Hashem. And because of that, he will be able to sense, the truth in everything. And he'll also be able to look at another person. He'll be able to see, when you judge somebody, you could judge somebody based on what he did or he didn't do. But then there's judging somebody also based on where the person is coming from. And today, that's also a part of the justice system, is to judge his motives and so on and so forth. But Mashiach, he will also be able to put into account the person's upbringing and everything that went on with a person that we might not know about or be able to detect by regular tools that we have to collect and process data. So Mashiach will be able to smell the essence of a person. We'll see that the essence of the person is essentially, he'll be able to detect and to bring out and to reveal the essence of the person, which is really good and pure, but because of circumstances sometimes which was the person's fault, it wasn't the person's fault, but ultimately that person's essence became covered up and concealed, and he got caught up with things that caused him to do something he wasn't supposed to do. But Mashiach will be able to sense with a sense of smell. Doesn't just mean he'll be able to detect in any given case who's right or who's wrong. He'll be able to get to the essence of things. He'll be able to feel and sense the essence of a Jew, the essence of what's really going on in every matter of the world. And automatically, will bring out a completely different perspective in how to relate to a person and how to judge him and so on and so forth. Now, what this means to us on a practical level, while we are not, we're still don't have, only Mashiach will really have the sense in a full way. But even for us, there's some way we could apply this today as well, which is, as the Rebbe explains, that sometimes there's certain situations or considerations of whether something is right or wrong, where data is not always sufficient. You want to know if something is good or wrong, that sometimes a person needs to have a certain sense of smell. Somebody that is very spiritually sensitive, somebody that is dedicated and committed to do the right thing, he could sometimes sense and smell, even though the argument might be put forth that this is okay, this is justified, he'll be able to smell and see something is fishy over here, as we say, right? There's sometimes it's people that are shrewd intellectually, and sometimes people that have a certain sense that that they feel there's something fishy, there's something wrong. Today's day and age, when we're holding right before Mashiach comes, sometimes the borderline between good and evil could be very, very skinny. It could be camouflage. It's sometimes hard to tell what's right, what's wrong. Just using intellect is not always sufficient. The person has to have a certain commitment, a certain connection to Hashem stemming from the essence of his soul, which gives him the ability to discern and to judge things not just by the way it sounds and it looks, which could be very deceptive, but by seeing, does this thing ultimately help with his connection to Hashem? As good as it sounds, is this something which ultimately, am I just trying to justify something, or do I really feel that this thing is something which will enhance my ability to serve Hashem or not? And for that, we need a certain sense of smell, not just to rely on data analysis and looking at arguments, but a certain connection, a certain, spiritual sensitivity, which is associated with the sense of smell, not maybe through our physical nose, but through the sense of smell of our soul, to be able to discern what's right and what's wrong, and through that, to be able to make proper decisions, even though according to data, a person could say there's nothing wrong with this. So this is this is a general discussion in short about Mashiach's ability to process information, how he will come to conclusions. A little bit more about this I discussed also in a previous episode, when Mashiach unveiled our hidden secrets, which was in season 2, episode 16. I would also finish off with a question that a viewer asked, that is the launch of AI, the fulfillment of the prophecy. The prophet tells us that no longer will man need to teach his fellow, because everybody will know me. And it's a good question. AI definitely could be used for good in a tremendous way, and it could help spread the knowledge of Torah, of Chassidus, of Moshiach throughout the world. Ultimately, the AI has its limitations, as we all know. We still need Moshiach to come and teach us and to bring the world to that state where we're not going to need any more teachers, anybody to help us know the truth, because godliness will be revealed to all. And there's more about this in another episode that I gave in the past. Is AI part of Mashiach, which is season 1, episode 27. It's not on video, it's not on YouTube, but it's on audio and Spotify and all that, and by Classic Take podcast by Tut Alts. It's season 1, episode 27, discussing if AI is part of Mashiach. And there I discuss the spreading of knowledge of AI, if that is the fulfillment of the prophecy, the knowledge of Hashem will spread throughout the world as water covers the sea.